Edit.
Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Eric Lindsay and I am a professor of composition and music theory. I'll be your guide through this series of videos designed to help you master the fundamentals of harmony and music theory. At the end of our time together, you should be able to read printed music and be able to play at least some of it on a piano. You should be able to understand the rules governing how tonal music is put together, and ideally you'll be able to apply these ideas toward music that you compose yourself. Let's get started. I want you first to get familiar with how the notes on a piano translate into musical notation. So I have here a standard 88-key piano, and each of these keys produce what's called a pitch, P-I-T-C-H. And a pitch is the term we use to describe a specific point on the continuum of musical sound. If you've never played on a piano before, on the far left, we've got very low notes. On the far right, we've got very high notes. Now, looking at the piano, you notice that we've got white keys and black keys. There are 52 white keys and there's 36 black keys. The white ones are what we're going to call natural notes. And these adhere to the first 7 letters of the alphabet A through G. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. The black keys are going to represent what's called sharps and flats of those letter names. A sharp looks like this. We can say this is a sharp, and it means raised, and flat equals lowered. So every note name on this piano is going to have something like A, and if you played the black key above it, you could call it a raised A or A sharp. Or you might notice the black key beneath it could be A lowered, which is an A flat. Would you write it A flat or A sharp? And the keen eye might notice that we have, these black notes in between 2 white notes, right? So we could be a little confused by saying, wait a minute, this note right here, if it's a B right here, and that's an A, or do we call that an A sharp or a B flat? I acknowledge your smart observation, and we will get to the difference between these 2 terms. We very much have rationale for why we call it sometimes A sharp and why sometimes we call it B flat. It all has to do with the context, but let's save that for a time down the line in a future video. Now, something you might also be noticing is the fact that we see these black keys and they are arranged into groups of 2 and 3. So there's 2 black keys, 3 black keys, 2 black keys, 3 black keys. And this pattern repeats over the course of the piano. In fact, this arrangement of 2 and 3, 2 and 3, 2 and 3, and so on is going to repeat 7 times over the course of this whole range. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. In musical terms, each repetition of this pattern constitutes an octave. So, octave. So thus, our piano has just a little over 7 octaves worth of notes. Notice we've got a couple of these that fall outside of it. At the bottom, this is octave 1. At the top, this is octave 7. So an important pitch that I want to draw our attention to is middle C. So to find C, we look for each pair of 2 black notes, and then it's the note immediately to the left, the one that's beneath the pair of 2 black notes. This is a C. So every time we find a pair of 2 black notes, all of these are going to be C, right to the left of these. And middle C is in the 4th octave of the piano. So if you go to the very bottom and start counting, this is C1, this is C2, this is C3, and this is C4, otherwise known as middle C. And if we wanted to go ahead and label the notes on either side of it, just going with the logic of the alphabet, we can go ahead and match what we have here. We've got B and A to the left, and to the right, D, E, F, and G. Now, you might have noticed that we just said there are more notes above G, but we only go up through letter G in our alphabet. So what do we do? What do we call this note that's right here? Well, you might have noticed that this first A is basically located beneath the top black note of that set of 3. So if you go to a set of 3 black notes and go down 1, that is A. And notice when we ran out of notes, now we got the G, we got this note here, we have once again approached that next A. This is an A, and this is an A. The difference between them is that we're in a different octave. As we pointed out earlier, this is octave 3, and that is the A belonging to that octave. And now this is the octave 4, and that is A belonging to that octave. So now this brings us as to why these are both called the same letter name. Well, they sound similar in a way, and it's just that this A sounds like this one, but higher, right? This has to do with how pitches are produced. Sound waves are basically vibrations of air. When sound waves vibrate at consistent speeds, what we call the frequency of the sound wave, and we measure this in hertz, our ears and our brain translate this into pitch. So higher frequencies correspond with higher pitches, while lower frequencies correspond with lower pitches. When I strike this A, this is A4, for instance, the strings of the piano are going to vibrate at 440 vibrations per second, which is the frequency that we perceive as A in the 4th octave. When this A is played, we'd expect it to be a slower frequency because it's lower on the piano, and in fact it does. It is 220 hertz. And a keen mathematical eye will notice that is half. So the half of a frequency of one note in one octave is going to equate to the same letter name an octave beneath. And just because the perception of sound, including aspects of pitch and loudness, is logarithmic, not linear, this A up here, A5, is not 220 hertz above, but actually 440 hertz above. This is a double of this number. So just from this sort of like physics and math standpoint, any doubling of a frequency is going to produce a sound an octave above. So, in other words, the technical definition of an octave is the interval, or space, between one musical pitch and another that's got half or double its frequency. Thinking about this more from the viewpoint of how this appears on the piano, we can also think of an octave as the measurement of that distance between two keys of the same name. So, 8 natural notes, hence the oct prefix in octave. Or if we're including the black keys as well, 12 adjacent pitches. So I could do this as a step. Here's the 1, step up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. We're back at A again. But what about describing the difference between A meaning 440 hertz versus the A meaning 220 hertz? Well, our naming system includes both the letter name and the octave name that we're in. Remember that we said there were 7 full octaves on the piano, and according to the labeling system that we use, each octave begins with C. So this first C down here that we identified, this is the start of octave 1. So it begins with C1. We'll go through all the letters D, E, F, G, A, B, and then begin the second octave, C2. D2, E2, F2, G2, so on and so forth. C3, D3, E3, F3, so on and so forth. Main thing to remember is that each octave is going to begin with C, not A. So you'd think that the lowest note, being A, that is A1. No, since the first octave actually begins with C, it's our first full octave. Actually, no, it's not. We could have started from A. Regardless, this is the way we do it. This is an A0, and that is a B0. And then C1 is the first octave. People do get thrown by this, so just keep that in mind. C is the start of each octave. So returning to our A's up here that we were just looking at earlier, middle C, being the start of the 4th octave, is C4. This A is beneath it as part of the 3rd octave. So this is in fact A3. And this A, that was above middle C, above C4, is A4. This numbering system is going to provide us with a shorthand to refer to any musical pitch, and someone else will know exactly which pitch we're talking about. Saying C7, which is, here's C4, 5, 6, 7, this C here, is much faster than saying play C 7 octaves from the lowest C, or play the C an octave below the highest C versus C8. We can just go ahead, or we could say, whatever, C7 is 2.9 kilohertz or something like that. Much faster is to say C7, and we know exactly what you meant to play. So, to summarize what we've covered thus far, we've introduced the idea that musical pitches are assigned to letter names from A to G, that they repeat over 7 octaves in the music, and each octave doubles the frequency of the previous one, starting with A0, the lowest note, and proceeding through C8, the highest note, and middle C is located at C4. We've also covered some techniques that help us find where some of these pitches are on the piano by locating that C's are always the note beneath each pair of the 2 black notes. So let's see if we can apply any of this. Let's play a short melody beginning on C. Let's erase all of these bad boys. So I'll play a short melody starting on middle C, And then after I play it, I want you to pause the video and see if you can figure out the names of the pitches that I just played, including the letter name as well as the octave name. So here's our tune, and watch where these notes fall on the keyboard. So pause the video, write down these 7 note names, and when you come back and you think you have them, continue with the rest of the video. Okay, so here's the answer. I started on the white key beneath a pair of 2 black keys, which is a C, and it's in the 4th octave. Again, here is octave 1, octave 2, octave 3, octave 4. And we don't have to worry about that one. So this is the 4th octave. This is the C, or C4 rather, then D4, E4, back to C4, then we jump to A. This A is actually in the 3rd octave. This is A3, G3, and then back up to C4. So if any of this feels dicey, I recommend drawing a representation of 1 octave of the piano so you can become really familiar with the spacing of the black and white keys. You can do that easy peasy just by drawing some lines like this, noting that we've got 2 black keys, a space. That's actually very important that we remember that space is there. 3 black keys and a space, and then it repeats again. This is looking a little jaggedy. It's like a cat drew it. But you can identify the fact that on this drawing, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and we're once again at C again. And we might also want to just note the fact of this is octave 4, that there are 3 octaves of this, and then above this octave, there's 5, 6, and 7, 3 octaves above. And refer back to this drawing as much as you need to until you commit these note names to memory. If you feel good about this content, let's move on. Our next job is to learn to write our melody down using musical notation. But to do this, you need to watch our next video. So I look forward to seeing you there.